Hello, hello. Nice and early one this morning. Yesterday I made some. I mentioned I'd make some notes, and I have on the document object and the document object model. Um, but yeah, we'll carry on today. So I mentioned yesterday as I was going through the HTML file that this script was actually in the head, and where it's fine for it to actually exist here. This step, so the next step, is showing that there's a bit of a problem, um, and this is to do with, I guess, the organization of the project, as it were. Because the script is in the head, and because the page sort of gets loaded from top to bottom, as far as I understand it, I might be wrong, um, and that's effectively what this is suggesting. That because the script is in the head, it means that the code runs before the browser has actually finished reading the HTML. So it's getting here, it's running the script, and that means when it tries to, I'll probably get some errors because I'm using um, the document dot query selector at a stage at which the browser itself has not yet loaded. So it's looking for stuff that in effect doesn't exist yet. And so fixing that is just a matter of moving the script tag to be run after the um, the browser has processed the HTML, which makes sense. I suggesting to put it at the end of your body element. Cool. So suggesting I put it here, and I'm going to try and align it nicely. I don't think, yeah. So again, like an editor will then sort of align it for you if you have that extension. But let's see. Cool. Cool. So button one is and we're back in the scripts .js file. So we're back writing my code. Button one is a variable that is not going to be reassigned. If you are not going to assign any variable to it, it's best practice to use the constant keyword to declare instead of let. This will tell JavaScript to throw an error if you accidentally reassign it. Cool. So again, we're talking about um, sort of setting up these variables and defining what they are, such that on the one hand the system knows, or the computer knows how to treat them, um, and sorry, on the one hand the system knows how to allocate resources to the variable that you're selecting in terms of size or whatever, but it also then knows how to treat it. And so here, in instead of using a let, using a constant, we're already telling it that once we set this, we don't expect to be changing it, and that then means that we almost protect ourselves from accidentally changing it later on because we know that it's a constant. So that's cool. To use the query selector to get the two other buttons elements using their IDs and store them in variables. Got button 1, button 2 that are also constants. So again, I'm gonna do this. I know this line works, so I'm gonna copy it. And again, I feel like this is me just being lazy, but I feel like this is safe. And they've got the same IDs, so I'm just gonna do this as opposed to typing it all out, because I know then I limit the chances of myself making any mistakes due to spelling or silly things. Bring that rain. Cool. So I guess at this point I'm creating, and I forget the term for this, but I'm creating handlers for the various things within the HTML file. And I'm using the query selector to assign those, or I'm grabbing objects from the HTML file and I'm assigning them to variables within my code to act as handlers for whatever I want to do with them later on. So this, I guess, would be, this would be what I'd want to do if I'm coming to, if I'm wanting to manipulate um, a HTML file with JavaScript. I want to be able to have these little handlers for whatever it is I want to do within my code, and so I'll need to assign them as such. Alright, that makes sense to me. Cool. So I need to do this for text. Now I'm thinking, in order to make sure that I don't miss anything, I'm going to create a list, as it were. Of everything I need to create a variable for. This might not be the best way to do it, but in my head I'm thinking, well, I know what I want to create, or I've got the list of things I need to create handlers for. And again, I don't even know if that's the right terminology for it, but so I'm just going to effectively create that list here. And I'm getting those red lines under it because effectively I'm creating stuff without by writing it as such. I'm saying I'm declaring these variables, and I'm effectively telling the code I'm initializing them, but I haven't completed my sentence. I haven't completed my statement, as it were. I haven't initialized them to anything, so they can see, okay, this is getting declared, and by putting an equal sign to it at the point of declaration, I am initializing, but there's nothing there. So it's highlighting those errors here, and I've just done that because I know I want to. As we read earlier, that it's good practice to end every JavaScript statement with a semicolon. So I've done this, and I know I'm going to be using the document query selector. So again, I'm going to be a bit lazy and sort of batch these things together, because then I reduce the risk of introducing silly errors. And I don't know if you saw that, but it will. So it's obviously still using a bit. It's still a smart sort of editor. I mean, the context highlighting is one thing. So the syntax highlighting is one thing. So being able to recognize that it's an error here is one thing. But also, look, when I go to create my brackets, I just create the opening bracket and the closing brackets also created at the same time, which is helpful. It just means I don't have to do another keystroke. Same thing applies to the quotation marks, which is quite cool. And this is the benefit of using like sort of smarter editors, because you can write your code. You can write it in Notepad. You can write it in Word document if you wanted to. But we've got these editors that add sort of quality of life improvements to the process like this. And so it's worth using that. Anyway, I wanted to do this because then I can just copy and I know exactly what I'm doing with my objects, with my methods. So this effectively is correct. That's why you're not seeing the red squiggly lines anymore. I'm effectively initializing all of these to nothing. And so it's not, it's for lack of a better way of describing it, it's grammatically correct. The syntax is correct. However, of course, as you can imagine, this won't work because you can't initialize it to nothing. You're saying, yeah, it's not useful. But I guess it's one thing to say you can have a grammatically or syntactically, syntax, semantics, no, not semantics, it's meaning syntactically. Well, you can have statements that have the correct syntax and still have errors in your code because they don't actually do anything or they don't work as they should. Cool. Now I'm going to go and grab the CSS selectors. I'm going to open up my HTML and I'm going to close a preview just to give myself a bit more space. Cool. So for an ID of text, it's this one. So, and effectively, I know that these names, or at least the name that they've given me, match the IDs, and that's been a request that the name of the variables match the IDs. So I should have, or I could just do that. I guess it's safe for me to come and check that they do match. And it's also useful for me to be able to go through and see, because the CSS selector, when it's an ID, is useful because IDs are supposed to be unique. But sometimes it might not be. It might not have a nicely sort of defined ID, and I'd need to use a chain of CSS selectors to sort of drill down to the element that I want. Now there are CSS selector strategies that are useful, and that I know of them. So I've got some blog posts that I need to start reading that discuss some of these things. But that's where you want to go to the HTML and make sure. And I'm just wanting to so make sure that these are the right ones. So I've got my text. Where's my gold text? Oh, I don't have gold text. I do have gold text. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Cool. That's what I want to do. Let's see if that works. Oh. Right. Okay. So nice. Silly error. Well, yeah, silly error. So in as much as the uh, the variables here match the names of the selectors, this actually is not a selector because text in itself, I guess it is a selector, but this would be an HTML tag. And so if I had wanted to grab maybe body, I could put body in there, and that's an element. These are then sort of suggesting these are elements, but that's not true. We know that these are actually IDs, and an ID is represented with hashtag. So I have made a silly error of not actually defining the CSS selector. So this is now saying, all right, find the element with the CSS selector of an ID that is text. Grab that in the document and assign that to this constant no, it's not variable anymore, is it? But it's constant data type called text, and that's what I'm doing. I'm doing that for everything else. Now the other thing as well worth noting is that in failing the code here, it failed. It's effectively gone through, it's tested, and sometimes this is how a test would work. It's tested every line, so it's tested 9, 10, 11, and it's happy. And then it's come to 12, tested, and that's failed, and it's stopped. So in as much as I made the same mistake for all of these, it wouldn't have got that far. It got to the first error, failed it, and stopped it there. Now, you can, I guess, I'm sort of going ahead here. You can build a sort of error handling so that errors don't stop your code from running, but are sort of handled, as the name suggests. Um, and then you'd catch an error, you'd do something with it, and you'd carry on. And so then errors become less catastrophic than they do here, because here it's clearly not carried on. It's got to the first error and stopped, and that's cool. So let's see if this corrects it, and it does. Let's bring up my preview, hide the HTML, and Bob is your mom or dad's brother. Use the query selector to get the monster health element. Because you've already declared a monster health variable earlier, is a different variable name for this element. Declare a new variable with constant to name it monster health text. Okay, cool. So I'll do just that. Cool. Cool. So comments are really useful, both for yourself and for others that might come to your code. So let's do that. Let's add that single line comment. And again, we're syntax highlighting it, right? So the editor knows if I have these two sort of forward slashes, whatever comes next is a comment, and it'll highlight that. It will color it as such. So that we know when we look at the screen that it just says that it's just a comment which is ignored by the program, but it's useful if I come back to this bit of code later on in life. I'll know what I'm trying to do here, and if someone else comes to it, it will give them a sense of what I'm trying to do there as well. Alright, so we're starting to use some more methods now. Button 1 represents the first button element. These elements have a property called onClick. What happens when someone clicks it? Okay. Okay. Cool. So there's a number of things going on here. And again, I want to go to. I should really be doing this in like an incognito window, so you don't see my past histories and stuff. But it's fine if you do. I mean, no one's watching this. Cool. So let's go to the MDN docs. So the reason I wanted to come here is because we can start to see what we can do with these various elements. So we know there's a button. And I want to go to its attributes. So all of these are various things we can learn about it. But I want to look at so I'm looking at this in HTML, but I probably want to look at this in JavaScript. So button attributes. I'm demonstrating I clearly don't know what I'm doing here. So I want to find the on click. And I wonder if that's so that is a JavaScript thing. And what would it be under? It's an event. So it's a JavaScript event. So on click. Cool. Right. So, alright, it's an HTML event. So I was probably looking for it in the wrong place. But HTML has these events that can be monitored and you can do stuff with it on change if something changes, on click, on mouse over, mouse out, etc. And so we're looking to use this on click event. Cool. So, alright, that was a little side quest. We've grabbed the button because we know we declared this constant button. So we grabbed the element in the document that has a CSS selector of an ID of button 1, and we've assigned that to this constant. So now in our JavaScript, this constant is this thing, and that's why we can then use what they have referred to here as the dot notation to say, we've got this button, which is this HTML object, and we know that we can do something with it. We can go into its events, or yeah, we can so we could have done an on mouse over on anything, all those HTML events that we looked at, but we're going into the on click. Now when we go to the on click, we want to then do something with that. So these elements have a special property called on click. Cool. So we know we're taking our button 1, and we're going to, once we click on it, do something. So use dot notation to set the onClick property to the function reference of go store, and that function is going to be something that we write later. Cool. So we are then saying, and this is our initializing the button, is for the element that we, or for the item, the element, the variable button 1, which is our button in the HTML, we are then saying when we click it, we want to set that to this go store function. Now I think function, so let's go and look at it. So that is, I was looking for how we represent a function. This is how we define it, and we call it as such. So my function into brackets, whatever arguments are going in. Now I don't know what arguments are going in, but we know that it's a function reference. Of course, let's actually let's look at function reference, see if that brings up anything nice. Stack Overflow will soon become our friend, but we can also just check, yeah. So again, you just need to really get good at Googling. Cool. All right. So this is a function number, so a function reference. We've seen the definition of a function here, and it does something, return a number to fix to, which is again fine. This we will sort of get to, but when we want to call it, we're calling it by format number 2. So this hopefully should work. Yeah, and it does. Yay. Cool. I think, what step am I? 37. I'm going to stop there for today. Because it's gym time. I want to get to the gym, get a nice workout in, come and have a good day. So, thank you guys for watching whenever you do, and I hope this was helpful. Peace.